Hello beautiful people, Carl here from Games, Brains and Headbanging Live, gbhbl.com for sure. And it is the state of things. Unlucky number 13. And it's a little unlucky because I do this video getting over a cold, coming to the end of a cold, so I am not going to be here that long. I don't think my throat's going to hold up. Biggest thing that kind of lingers of a cold for me these days is throat speaking issue. Not sore necessarily, but it quickly dries out, it quickly croaks up, and it quickly becomes unlistenable. I, like all of you, suffer from colds. Sometimes they can be good, sometimes they can be bad. Well, they're never freaking good, but you know what I mean? Sometimes they can just be alright and you get on with things, and sometimes they can just be like, oh my god, I don't want to leave. And it made me laugh because I was off on annual leave, of course, if you remember the video from last week. And had a good weekend, great time at the Forlorn show. I had a nice Sunday as well, which was, had a nice weekend, should I say. Kind of chilled out Saturday, kind of recovered a little bit because it was quite a late night on Friday, but a lot of fun was had. And then chill out on Saturday and a Sunday, kind of went for a nice walk, enjoyed some sun, had a single beer in a pub, and then just got slowly ill from that point. I remember feeling like not too great that day and having a bit of a scratchy throat and kind of recognising the signs, because you know what it is, you've had a cold yourself, right? So you kind of spot the signs when they're coming. And for me, it's a certain level of sensitivity, skin sensitivity, and a scratchy throat. That's the first clue something's about to happen. And then it just goes stages. It's really, really predictable stuff. And thankfully, it sort of kind of like makes it clear when I know I'm getting over it. I'm like 4 or 5 days into it now. It's Friday when I'm recording this, and it hit its peak on Monday, right when I was about to go back to work. You're supposed to go back to work like feeling all refreshed and energized from your time off, and I went back feeling worse than ever, particularly as it's night as well. Not sleeping properly, blocked up nose. Well, the first, day or two, pure, like it's like a faucet. That's the part of a cold I hate more than anything else. I can live with just about everything. I can live with the hearing issues, the blocked up nose, the kind of scratchy / sore throat. I can live with all of that. The 24 to 48 hours that I have of just a really runny nose, you know what I mean, where it's like a faucet, and every time you kind of think you kind of got control of it, you'll sneeze, which kind of just starts off again. I hate that more than anything else. What's like the worst part of a cold for you? Because that for me is the worst part. But it's the end of the week. I'm getting better. Get over it. And we move on. It is what it is. It's a cold, right? What are you going to do? There's no cure. So we kind of just have to live with it. Take those drugs that hopefully make it a little bit better, and then we move on. It's been a mostly quiet week because of that. I did, finished up some interviews earlier on in the week. I had to cancel a few because of the cold, but I dragged myself through 1 or 2 just because I was worried that if they didn't happen, they may never happen again. Then it's mainly just been about catching up, because at the start of the week I was so unmotivated because I was feeling so crappy, and it's a big problem. It's been a while since that happened. When we've been doing this video, it's the sound of a screeching police car outside my window out there, just that bloody siren as it screams around that corner. That's why that got cut there. What was I saying? Yeah, unmotivated, very unmotivated start to the week, which, just... It's one of the things I hate more than anything else about my body, about my mind, and just like that part that just like where I'm tired, I'm run down, I'm not feeling great, and because of that I can't focus or push myself to kind of do stuff for the website, do stuff in general, and that then suffers, causes more issues further along, because by losing a day or two where I can't do anything, I can't be bothered to do anything, I don't feel like doing anything, and I'm pushing everything back, it means I've got more work to do further on in the week, and so on. And then it sort of means eventually I have to cram, and that causes more stress and anxiety. It's just the worst. For the most part, I'm pretty good at keeping myself motivated and always able to do something, because, if I'm not feeling, say I'm not feeling a video like this, and I'm not, to be honest. I did consider again kind of just doing a really short 5-minute one where it's like, look, I'm not well, it ain't happening this week, and then moved on. But I kind of thought about it and thought, well, I could at least pull a 15-minute, 20 minutes out of this. I have a few things I'm going to go through, as always, so why the hell not do it? But I am normally pretty good at finding a different thing to do. If I can't be bothered to do one thing, I'll do a different thing. But it's still a lot of hard work to kind of push myself in that state. Thankfully, as the week's gone on, it's got better, and I've been nicely motivated the last day or two. I've been getting plenty done, listening to some great music, arranging stuff for the future, because I'm about to hit a bit of a period in April where time is going to be really, really limited. Work-wise, I'm basically doing about 2 weeks worth of late spread over a 3-week period. And obviously, if you watched these videos before, I mentioned lates are the kind of shift more than any other that stops me dead in my tracks. It's 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. With me leaving for work, between 1:30 and 2 o'clock, and then not getting in until 11:30 most circumstances. So interviews are pretty much out the window completely. Around that I just have to kind of balance how late I stay up when I get in from a late and how early I get up the next day, depending on what I need to do. It can be a lot of work. It can be long. That's what it can be. It can be very, very long week. Those weeks where I'm doing late, and particularly lates, just, I don't know, they feel like they're often the ones that are the busiest for me actually at work because of the evening peak and stuff like that. The tunnel's going to open next week. This will be the last video I do, last state of things with the new tunnel. I forgot the name of it. I'm like, wait, what's it called again? The Crosswell Tunnel? No. The new tunnel, the one day that's going to sit alongside the Blackwall Tunnel, that opens on Monday morning. We're going to start getting charged to go through the Blackwall Tunnel, of course, now as well. But from next week, hopefully traffic around that area should be marginally better. I'm not expecting great things, and I'm going to temper my expectations to a certain degree. I'm sure there's going to be shit ton of teething issues that result in delays and more issues than we expect. Oh my god. That is the third one in 8 minutes. The first one happened before I even pressed, just as I was about to press record. The second one happened with the cut, and the third one just happened there. God, oh, that's so annoying. I've told you before, it's because directly from where I'm pointing, directly all the way over there, and I've got quite a large living room, but all the way over there is my sort of living room windows that face out to a fairly busy main road, busy enough, but we're not on the edge. It's enough of a gap. It's enough of a gap so that you don't hear cars and stuff, except when a noisy bus might go up. However, it's on a bend, so it's on a slight curve. And it's a downhill, so it goes downhill from a roundabout and then curves round. So it's a blind corner if you were coming down top speed. Obviously, when you're a police car and you're coming down there and you need to be somewhere in a rush, an ambulance, police car, whatever, you are going to be driving a little in a certain way. Down that road, so you're going to put your sirens on because these will alert people who might be coming around the other end of the bend. Basically, that's what happens there. But it's been really kind of peaceful with these videos most weeks, and it's just getting hit today. Hopefully that's it. I knew this one was going to be a bit messy because of how I feel. I just don't want to have to keep cutting around the goddamn police car. Normally it's easier for me just to edit and convert without having to do that. But anyway, moving on. What was I talking about? Work? Was I talking about late? I've forgotten. But yeah, it was kind of similar. It was in that ballpark, wasn't it? I had that period, but then at the end of April, it all kind of just kicks in again. Now, thankfully, around that, Dan's birthday is occurring. Then at the end of April, we've got a big group drink for him, as well as gigs like Employed to Serve, which I'm really looking forward to. And then Incineration Fest at the beginning of May, which I can't wait for, and so on. But yeah, so it's just that block of middle of April is not going to be very lively for me outside of work, except for one area. There is something significant happening in that. I do want to talk about it. Because I kind of want to document in this state of things the process and what it's going to be like and what the experience is like and how it's going and stuff like that. But I just don't know if I'm quite ready to kind of get that topic off and rolling yet, because it's such a personal thing and it's such a big deal. And obviously everybody's circumstances are different. I think next week I might dedicate the state of things, next week's state of things, to talking specifically about this, because next week we will be very, very close to we will be almost a couple of days of just like the triggering the process that we're about to start. So I might talk about it next week instead. Just safe to say, it's very exciting and it's very life-changing. I'm sure you can probably work out what it means. It's not children-related. Spoilers. Spoilers. I am so all over the place. I've had a vasectomy, so I had a vasectomy quite young as well. I was in my early 30s when I had a vasectomy. I had Dan with his mother very, very, very young, or youngish. I was 18. And from that point onwards as well, I kind of decided I didn't want any more children. Obviously, I would meet Lou. and it just turned out she had a similar vibe about children and stuff like that. And then eventually, it was quite early, decided to have a vasectomy. I was able to convince my doctor to give it to me, and yeah, that's it. So there's not children related, basically. Even if I'd wanted children, which I really, really don't. Both myself and Lou, my wife, we have no interest in children beyond, of course, my wonderful, wonderful Dan, my wonderful child. Well, he's not a child anymore. My wonderful Dan, which I'm more than happy and really grateful for, but any others, was a no. And, particularly considering over the last decade or so, all my siblings have had children themselves. I'm surrounded by them. I am surrounded by them. And I love them all individually, but in their own way. But yeah, that's enough for me. But so it's not kids, is what I'm basically saying. So work it out. What major things happen in life, or that you can do in life that are changing, game changing, so to speak, life changing. Careers, moving country, I guess, children, and there's one more, obviously, or maybe there's more than one, but that's the one I'm thinking of. But we'll talk about it more next week. I want to keep this really light. I previously said I'd kind of start most videos talking about a specific point, a thing that we do on the website, or thing that's done on the website. I'm going to do that again this week, although I didn't start with it. It is here as well. Writing horror reviews, a horror movie review. This is a process that's so simple. It really isn't complicated, but it's one that is where I often find myself most critical. Now, we have certain rules in the site, rules, so to speak, but certain things we follow, and it mainly relates to music, which is, if you listen to something you really don't like, just don't write a review for it. What's the point? We don't use that for game or horror, though. Games are horror. If we don't like something, we're a bit more cutting, a bit more honest about it. And I think a major part of it is because of the lack of a personal feel that these things might have compared to music. So with music, you might have like an album that's made up of, from a band made up of 4 people, or even less, 3 people, 2 people, hell, even 1 person. And that it's subjective more than anything else. And that 1 person or 2 people or 3 people have poured all they can into it. And even if it doesn't work, that's such a small little group of people, it feels pointless and unfair and unnecessary to tear them down. You just don't cover it. When it comes to a movie, for example, a film, that's a whole different ball game. Studios are involved, investors are involved, you've got directors, writers, actors, and all of that. It's all different parts coming together to try and make something. And, so it's different areas to, be successful in and fail. So you can often get away more as well, praising one aspect and deriding another. But that's a different kind of time investment, I think. So, for example, music, you can listen to it on the move. You can listen to it while doing something else. You can listen to it while you're driving. You can do it, you can listen to it in a group, all these different ways. With a film, you kind of have to, majority of the time, sit there and watch it. And say it's 90 minutes, you give 90 minutes of your time. That is your investment. That is the return. So you deserve a return on that investment, some form of return. There's all these reasons why I'm a little bit more critical when it comes to horror movie reviews. However, I want to love everything. I'm a very open-minded person, even when it comes to horror. Aside from one particular sub-genre that I kind of go in with low expectations, and then, if it gets better, yay. That's found footage, but that's purely because I have been burnt more times. There are some fantastic found footage movies out there, and even ones beyond the obvious greats, your first Paranormal Activities, your Blair Witches, and even those movies have flaws, of course. There are some great low budget, lesser known ones, but there are also plenty that stink. It's one of the subgenres that I kind of grown at. That, and these days, anything paranormal, for the possession based, those sort of things. I used to say horror moved in cycles, and that we'd get to a cycle, and then that's all that people would be doing. And it feels like we've been stuck in the paranormal possession kind of cycle for longer than any other. We're still getting content out like that. We're now kind of stuck. Well, I'd say we are still kind of stuck in that, but we're also kind of moved into the Blumhouse cycle, as I think of it, where basically it's just Blumhouse movies over and over again, and diminishing quality on all of those sort of films. But anyway, by the by, horror movie reviews. I watch them. I watch a film, and that's literally how it goes. There's nothing complex about that. It's laughably simple. I will watch a film. I don't write notes. I do not take notes or anything like that. I'll watch a film in a number of different environments. Sometimes I'll watch a film in bed. Sometimes I'll watch a film with my wife. Sometimes I'll watch it on my own. Sometimes I'm watching it on my iPad. Sometimes I'm watching it as a side piece to doing something else. That's normally a second watch, or just like a sort of cursory idea of what's going on. All these different ways I will watch a film. And then I will decide by the end of that film if it's worth writing about a review now. 99% of the time I plan it. I plan to watch something, but there are times, right, where I've watched something that's so remarkable that almost once it's finished, I can't remember a thing about it. I tend to just put them to the side. I might come back to them in the future, who knows. But majority of the time, everything's going to get reviewed. I have a horror movie review list, all gets piled in there, and sometimes I may not come back to that film. And sometimes a review has been written or will be written a month after I viewed that film. I've got quite a strong memory, so I'm able to kind of reflect. But I also go to, say, IMDb, and I might reread a synopsis or look at the cast list just to re-trigger certain memories. The hope is that there will be something so within that film so memorable, even if it's a particular scene or a moment that just kind of keeps it in the focus. But there are many times when that's not the case. So I'll write a review, and my process for a horror movie review is this. I want to start with an introduction, and normally that's directed by, written by, cast list, and maybe just a short little spiel depending upon how I feel. If the film has been outrageously bad, I might mention that in the start. If the film's been outrageously good, I might mention that. If it's fairly substandard, there's going to be some in the first paragraph words kind of just to summarise it. Then I like to flow it into a kind of plot description. Now, this is the hardest part to write about, because to me it's going to be longer than a synopsis. It's going to be longer than an IMDb synopsis, so more than 2-3 lines, that kind of thing. But it also can't be an essay where I'm talking you through the bloody plot. So summarising a plot is quite difficult, particularly when you're talking about characters and if it's overtly complicated. What I tend to do is try to sort of give you an introduction, lead into the bulk of the story, particularly in regards to what the main characters will be doing, and then kind of leave you on a cliffhanger note, such as, will this happen, that kind of thing, and so on, and then flow into my thoughts about it. Now, that's not always the easiest thing to do, and sometimes it fluctuates how long or how well written that is. It all depends upon the movie. It all depends upon my imagination as well, because if the movie hasn't been that imaginative, it's hard to be that imaginative about writing about it too. Then when it comes to the bulk of reviews, I tend to focus first on story. That's the kind of first thing. And through story, I can elaborate. I sort of see that as there's my circle, and I'm talking about the story, because story is everything. And if the story sucks in the film, nothing else can possibly be good. You can have good acting, you can have good visuals, you can have good gore, you can have all these other things that are good individually. But when they're then branching off this fractured part, which is a poor story, you're in trouble. If the story isn't engaging, the story isn't good, the movie's in deep, deep trouble already. So yeah, start with a story. Start about kind of how I feel about it and what I thought was good, bad, and plot points. And sometimes if there's a specific point, I might mention that, but I tend to dance around spoilers and certainly try not to break anything down too much, because I don't want you to get bored. I want to keep it tight and neat. I am quite hot on keeping horror reviews between the sort of 500 to 800 word count. So there's that. And then from there, from the story part, I can easily branch out, because then you start talking about characters, which are obviously intrinsic to the story as well. And from that, if you talk about characters, you can talk about the acting and so on. And you can then expand upon that into the visuals and things like that. I try not to do bullet points. And what I mean by that is go story, here's a bullet point, story, and then just tell you about that. Here's the next bullet point, acting, and tell you about that. I like to make it flow. Again, it's not always the easiest, but for the most part, I'm pretty good at that. And then that's pretty much it. And then an outro, a sort of a summarization, an overall if you want, that kind of thing. Again, it all depends on the quality of the movie, how in depth and how detailed and how interesting that can be. I love when I get to write a passionate review, because the movie's either filled me with such joy or such annoyance that I can really, really get into it. I have a rule. I think it's the simplest rule. I think it's a rule everyone should know. I think it's a rule a lot of people understand about horror movies, which is you can be bad, you could be good, you could be stupid, you could be silly, you could be laughable, you could be interesting, you could be saying something, you could be smart, you could be dumb, you could be all these things, because it's subjective. What you enjoy and what I enjoy are completely different things. We can cross over in certain things, but for the most part, what you are entertained by doesn't necessarily entertain me, and vice versa. But what we can all agree on is when a film is boring. When a horror film is boring. Speaking about horror here specifically, and it's the number one rule I have for a horror film. Don't be boring. Whatever you do, Be the dumbest, worst, ugliest thing going. But don't be boring. And what I mean by that is don't do something that's so blasé, so bland, so uninteresting, so unexciting, so that I sit there and I just start to fall asleep, or mind starts to wander and I realise I'm not paying attention to the screen. All of these things, don't do that. It happens more than it should, but thankfully it also doesn't happen as much as you would think. Don't be boring. If you're boring, you're in a lot of trouble. But yeah, that's the horror movie process. And when it comes to going up on the website, I take what was written from... Oh, I thought I was hearing the siren again. But yeah, take what was written in a Word document, put it in the WordPress, of course, into the process on the site, search down some good pictures, a nice cover, and then just put them in where I feel they fit. Try to keep them relevant to the paragraphs, of course. That's it. That's it. There is nothing really there. It's a lot simpler than someone's writing and say a review for an album, because there's less to kind of hunt down and work with. But then also finding the right pictures and sometimes rewriting. If I'm not particularly happy with a paragraph, can take a bit longer than it can, say, on the music review point. Sometimes I find it harder to be passionate about a horror movie review than I do an album review, particularly as these days. When we started writing horror for the site, it was a horror movie review every single night. Yeah, for real. 7 a week. 31 or 30 or 28 in February's case. A month. I don't know how we used to do that. I don't know how sustainable that was. Then we switched it to once every 2 days. And now it's once every 4 days. A new one once every 4 days. There's actually a review every 2 days. But basically what we're doing now, because of the wealth of content, and we have thousands of horror reviews up on the site. Now what we do is every 2 days, alternating, is a repost of an old review. It's also given me a chance to go back and rewrite and tidy up and just make some of the older reviews a little neater, a little better. I'm not rewriting the content. I stand by the reviews even if my style has changed significantly, and that's notable with some of the reposts already. But yeah, that's what we're doing every 2 days, and then 2 days later is a brand new one. This has given me more freedom to kind of take my time writing, to not rush it, but also because as of right now, the other horror review writers have taken a hiatus on that, so it is just basically me, and that's too much to do just for me. But yeah, nothing complex about it, of course, but yeah, it's mainly just paying attention, focusing, and then just finding the right flow. Sometimes when I'm writing horror movie reviews, it just flows so perfectly. I can write one in like 20 minutes if I'm feeling really passionate about it. Other times it can take hours. It really, really does depend on the film. Yeah, what else has been going on this week? I talked about it in a separate video, and we're going to talk about it in a future video as well with me and Liam. But yeah, Switch 2 is beginning to go down terribly. It started off with everybody being really excited, and now everybody's just really, really angry. And it comes down to one thing, which is price and the greed of companies. Just the constant chipping away, the constant price hikes, the constant, oh, well, we want money, but we also want more money now, because the money that we have and the money that we get, we don't want some of the money, we want all the fucking money, all the fucking time, and all of them do this, and they do not get as they keep chipping away, and then they're like, oh, don't pirate, piracy hurts us, while we continue, for no reason except our greed, increase prices. Yeah, if you defend these price hikes that Nintendo are doing, you are part of the fucking problem. Just because you can afford it doesn't mean everybody can. Seriously, stop shilling for these multi-million-dollar companies that are basically going, no, we don't just want a little bit more money, we want all the money. It's so expensive to make games. Give us more while we reuse assets and create another Mario Kart game that you've all seen 100 times before. Bit of an exaggeration, but you know what I mean. It's exhausting. And even I, as a Nintendo fan, will not defend this. I don't know what they're doing here. And obviously what it's going to do is set a precedent. And that's what you should be worried about, folks. Do not think for a second that all the other companies, and you know them, the greedy-ass companies, all of them are sitting there going, and they're going to keep an eye on how well these games sell, and if Nintendo generally suffer the consequences of their actions. They won't. Look at the stupid price in their system they already have right now. Look at the stupid things they charge you for now. It's not great, but in the other video I said that there was no way I was getting this console on launch day or around the launch period as well. And that's not just because of the price, because I don't expect a significant price drop, and certainly not for the games going forward. But because of how piss poor the launch titles are. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, I think that's about it. I really wanted to keep this short. Yeah, even now I'm talking, I can feel myself just getting more exhausted as I kind of go on, and my throat is just beginning to kind of just ache a little bit. So I'm going to end with the soundtrack, the favourite soundtracks. Remember, I know it may not, like, and maybe people don't really particularly care, but I don't know, I just wanted something to end the videos on. So this week, and I don't have it on vinyl. I don't even know if it's available on vinyl. But my God, it is such a cool soundtrack for the most part. And you kind of forget just how cool of a game it was. Timesplitters 2. This soundtrack is so cool because it's such a unique game. Of course, it's just a first-person shooter that involves you basically going through time and, you know, dealing with different enemy types and different worlds. But it was so imaginative. And each soundtrack fits the particular area you go to. There are so many great ones. I can't necessarily remember the specific levels. I'm going to try and see if I can bring up the individual level kind of things. Yeah, like, so I always, when I think of the soundtrack, there are certain ones that always come to mind more than anything else. Of course, the first level, which was, it's the ice one. What's the name of the level? It's Siberia. I always remember that one. But the ones that really sort of stand out for me are like the Chicago level. The Chicago level where you get, what era would that be cut? Like the 1920s or something like that. That one is really, really cool. The future one, yeah, like Neo Tokyo, that one's a really, really great one. But the one that I love more than anything else, it's so cool and so epic and so layered, is Notre Dame. That one is amazing. Later ones, Wild West is really, really good as well. The Streets, Space Station, yeah, it's such a strong freaking soundtrack. But yeah, Timesplitters 2, it's one of those that I forget about, and then I put it on and just let it play. It's like, this is badass. What a clever little piece of music. How developed, how intricate the soundtrack is. How it's not repetitive. Like, the songs are like actual pieces of music, like songs, and that they don't repeat over and over again, and they flow and they develop. I love that. It's so, so cool. And immediately when I hear it places me back playing that specific level. Timesplitters 2 is such an underrated shooter as well. I think most people who love the game love it like and think the same like I do as well. But it's kind of just one of those forgotten ones, really, particularly as the franchise is pretty much dead and buried these days. That's the game, the Timesplitters franchise overall, but that's a game that is well deserving of a remastering. What do you think now? You feel that strongly about it, or have good thoughts about what I've talked about here? You know what to do? Let me know in the comments. Thank you very much for watching. If you've enjoyed what you've seen, please consider hitting that like and subscribe button. It does help us out. You can find us at gbhbl.com and across all social media platforms. And if you really want to give us a bit of extra support, please consider buying us a cup of coffee over on our coffee page. Thank you.